All right. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Tomboy Official. I am on here waiting for my food. I ordered some takeout, so decided to record an episode about something that maybe some people may be interested in. I'm not too sure, but mainly along the lines of dealing with family around the holidays. I'm gonna be coughing a lot. I was vaping pretty recently, but I want to talk about this topic because, with holidays, it's not for everybody. I was joking with a friend of mine, kind of joking but serious, but made it into a joke, saying that, this is probably going to be the first holiday that I'm only going to do what I want to do. I'm not really going to overextend myself. If people want me to go to their thing that I might not want to go to, I'm not going to go. If everybody's throwing a party and, say if there's like 6 parties to go to or something in like a 3-month period and that's too much for me, I'm not going to be doing all that. I'm not going to like every gift exchange and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not really going to interact with people forcibly, in a way that I don't want to. The difficulty with holiday time periods for people who have family and friends that celebrate, like, it can be peaceful, it can be nice, it can be great, it can be wonderful. Or it can be to an extreme of, not having anybody to celebrate with, and it's negative because of that reason, or having people to be around during the holidays, but the experience with them socially might not be too appealing, and that's kind of more so what I'm trying to avoid. So, I'll just talk about an experience. I think last night recently I kind of fell into a bit of a trap. Some old family dynamics coming up, and, you kind of know how it is, right? It's like we all, not all of us, but I think those of us who might have some trouble with certain family members, when it comes to those specific people, we kind of know how they are, right? It's like you leave those interactions just being like, ugh, my gosh, like, why did I even, like, interact with them at all, And so this is mainly going to be me kind of venting about that, but just kind of my thought process surrounding it. So I don't really mind bringing up the conversation. So, there was this whole, weekend where a lot of us have been off since Thursday, Sunday rolls around, people start, leaving a very long weekend. And luckily, up until that point, things were mostly okay. I mean, usually things don't go that many days with really no concerns, but I would honestly say, first of all, I probably got my hopes up just because I was like, wow, this is odd that, we're like 4 days in, and or 3 full days in, And nothing has gone negative, it's been nice the whole time. So, mainly, I, I assumed, okay, well, maybe, this person has changed, which I know better, I know better. But I was just thinking, wow, like, this wasn't unpleasant. There's maybe one slightly just kind of obnoxious comment that somebody made, where it's kind of like, okay, whatever, let it roll off your back. And that was on, what day did I go to the gym? Ooh, that was Friday. So that happens, it was like a one comment, like one person makes a comment, I commented back, that was the end of that discussion. You know how it is when, like, I don't know if you guys know people who just kind of ask obnoxious questions just as a way to kind of be annoying or get under your skin. But I was kind of thinking about that one too, and I was like, it's the same person, same person who's generally problematic. And so, I kind of let it roll off my back, but, I was like, I did find myself thinking about it a little bit after the fact, after they made some kind of, it was like a slightly rude comment. Like, we crossed paths in some space, and we're just like, I'm not really trying to, like, talk at all, but they kind of made a comment about something I was doing, and I was just kind of like, so, like, like, this is just what I do. It's part of my routine, but it's like, okay, none of your business, like, like, I wasn't doing anything, like, weird. It was, like, something, like, equivalent to, like, drinking a protein shake after the gym or something. It was, like, like, that kind of thing. And it's, like, okay, I was, like, let me unpack that whole thing. And I'm just thinking, like, okay, they probably had nothing better to say. I mean, they probably know that I actively ignore them. I don't initiate conversation with them. They see me in a space where it's just me and them, and it's like, we don't talk as it is. And so the only thing they have to say to me is some kind of, like, negativity. And so that's kind of how I took it. I'm just like, this is just because they're just trying to interact, and, a flawed attempt at interacting. Like, but I noticed this person only knows how to interact by creating debates, creating arguments, trying to kind of get under people's skin. And then once they kind of start bubbling up, once the other person starts bubbling up, now there's going to be this exchange of some form of conversation, usually a negative usually a negative experience. Usually it's going to be an experience where, they just want to debate and get under somebody's skin. And I take that as a tactic of, I want to interact. This is kind of just what I hear underneath it all is, I want to interact. I don't know how to interact in a way that is authentic or vulnerable, so I go out of my way to put people on the defense to get under their skin, because then they're going to interact with me, but they also won't get too close. So I'm going to get some kind of interaction. It's going to be some kind of an argument or a debate, or they're going to know or feel me getting under their skin, and we're going to have some kind of exchange of dialogue, but we're not really going to get anywhere. This isn't going to be me starting some authentic conversation, with anybody, because I don't know how to do that. I don't have the social skills to do that. I don't have the emotional intelligence to handle that. That's what I hear with this person consistently, right? So that's what I have to remind myself. And I know with family, with friends, with loved ones, it can be hard, but that's kind of the way that I try to kind of deal with it, is kind of look at like what is really happening here. What's really happening. It's like it's not really necessarily okay. Well, some situations might be like this, but I'm just talking about this specific person. It's not that they don't care. It's not that they don't want people around them. It's not that they don't want me specifically around them. It's just that they don't know how to interact with people, or else they would have gotten this down by now. So I have to keep reminding myself of that this person doesn't have adequate social skills. I mean, I say that because, they live by themselves all the way on another side of the country, as far away from any other family members. Like, there are no other family members that even live within a drivable distance of this person. So this person has to call the shots whenever they want to see somebody. They are the ones that are making the effort to come to everybody. If they want to visit their kids, if they want to visit their nieces, if they want to visit their nephews, if they want to visit aunts, uncles, friends, the church pastor, like whatever it is, if they want to interact, they're going to have to make the effort to fly pretty much to meet anybody. Like, they live far away from everybody. So that's already all of that is already like multiple signs, right? And they also create a situation for themselves where they can justify doing this. So they kind of keep their finances out of order, so that they have to take different jobs at faraway places that pay more. To me, it's like an unconscious strategy. All of this is like an unconscious strategy of how this person interacts with the world. And, every so often, I am forced to interact with this person. And, there can be some kind of hurtful, painful interactions. Me being a pretty sensitive person, it's not ideal to be like in a space with somebody that you're like, oh God, whenever they open their effing mouth, it's gonna be some BS thing, because I actively go out of my way to create relationships with people that's not how we interact. We can have a conversation about what's actually going on. Like, if somebody, if I'm in the same space as somebody and I'm kind of nervous about talking to them or whatever, I'm not talking about these family or friends or whatever. I'm talking about the people that I actually value spending time around. Of course, none of us is going to be perfect still, but usually when I'm with the people that I care about, that I've actively, purposefully developed and grown relationships with, we're usually all on the same page about, healthy relationships, what that looks like. Starting debates with people isn't a healthy relationship. It's not a good social skill. So I'll explain kind of the the blowout event. I'm not going to explain the exact details of everything, but just a bit of the drama. This person is dramatic, though, by the way. And, like I mentioned, this is all their stuff that they have going on, that they haven't worked out. And so they come into holiday spaces and create a mess, right? So I looked at this, I'm looking at all this, since Friday. I'm kind of like, okay, like Friday was the first time something actually kind of happened. And then now we come all the way to the end of Sunday evening. And I'm just thinking, like, Sunday night, like, I gotta have a kind of like a farewell dinner with these people. Like, the last people who are there for the holiday, we're gonna have a farewell dinner, and this person is there. It's kind of like a goodbye, end of the holiday, end of the days off, kind of, okay, we're officially ending this. Here's the last dinner we're gonna have before the last of us kind of part ways. And this person had to travel, mind you, because, they had to get on a plane because they had to fly all the way across the country. And so we're there, multiple people in the family are there. And, one person is being authentic and vulnerable and ask me, do you want to join this Bible study that I'm starting, or this Bible study, it's online, you wouldn't have to do anything, kind of, they're going out of their way to kind of ask about that. And I understand. I'm like, okay, that's a kind of vulnerable thing to ask, somebody, I think, it's, you're kind of putting yourself out there. It's not quite like asking somebody on a date. It's not quite like, but it's almost along that line of like asking somebody to share some kind of personal space with you. And so I respected that, and I was kind of like, I respectfully declined, because I was just kind of like, I don't really like, Bible studies, because they kind of force me to kind of study stuff that, I like studying I like studying what I want to study when I want to study it, and I have nothing against studying the Bible. I'm not even saying that I don't study it. It's just, usually around this time of year, I'm studying like history and religious history surrounding holidays and stuff like that, and different cultural histories and how things kind of tie together, how things are different. That's kind of what I prefer to study. But with me, I felt like they kind of pushed a little, and I was kind of like, okay, you can push a little, but I'm still like, they're like, you don't have to read it, it's audio, like, whatever. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I just kind of like doing my own thing. And I explained, like, last year, I was working on this big project with a bunch of people and with some friends, and we have fun doing that, like, we'll dive into like religious theory and stuff like that. And like, that's kind of what me and my friends, some friends, like to do. So if I'm going to study the Bible, it's usually going to be like that. It's going to be like for a specific topic. I'm not really into like those specific types of devotionals. Like the specific thing that they were mentioning, I'm not really into that. It's just not my preference, and I was like, I'm probably honestly not going to do it. But I mean, I wouldn't mind opting in and just not doing it. Just to like have it there, but I'm not going to do it every day. I just know I'm not, unless I feel like it, because, I like to study what I feel like studying, when I feel like studying it. And so that was, I didn't say that like I might opt in, but in my mind, like now I'm thinking, I'm like, I might opt into it. I'm not like opposed, but also like I'm very, I might be a little bit opposed, actually. I actually think I am opposed, because I grew up, I mean, I'm not trying to sway anybody's beliefs or faith with anything, but, I did grow up in church, and I'm kind of not really into being told what to study. I like to decide what I want to study on my own. That's just my own preference, So I just kind of respectfully declined. And then, this person is just asking, pretty much others, and they get to this one person, the person with the not so great social skills, and they get to this one person, and they ask this one person, would you like to join, this Bible study, and you know, that person didn't actually say yes or no. When I think back to it, I was thinking about it and I was like, they didn't really say yes or no. They didn't respond with anything positive. They basically took it as an opportunity to, exploit somebody's vulnerability and be like, well, why do people read the Bible over and over and over? Like, once you read it once, isn't that kind of enough? And I'm kind of thinking, okay, well, this person goes to church over and over every week. So with that argument, it's kind of like, well, why do you go to church all the time then? If they're talking about the Bible there every week, so shouldn't that be just as obsolete as reading the Bible then? I mean, like, I don't understand. But I there was no logic to this. They just wanted to start a debate. And, I did take part of the bait for sure. But part of it was in defense of this other person. And then another part of it was just because I could kind of tell, I mean, who talks about religion? You're at a dinner. Who doesn't know you don't talk about, politics? You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about this kind of stuff over a dinner. That's not appropriate. It's not what you do. But this person takes the opportunity to start trying, and talking about a pretty sensitive subject and kind of taking jabs, talking about, the story of Adam and Eve and, where did all the other people come from? And I'm very well versed in the Bible, So, everything that they were debating and asking questions of, I actually was like, well, I have answers for all of this. Like, but at the same time, I'm like, nobody's listening at this point. This isn't a point where people are listening to each other. But basically what happened is I was like, okay, like, this whole interaction was probably just a couple minutes, but it took up so much space in my own memory, I guess, in my own energy bank, that, I spent the rest of the night just pretty depleted and woke up this morning, and that's kind of like the first thing kind of on my mind, and I'm just like, geez, like, I don't want to be thinking about this. It's complete BS, it's complete BS. So I broke it down again for myself, and I was just like, you know what? This person doesn't have adequate social skills. That's all it boils down to. They don't know not to talk religion at a dinner. And I think, if I go to the whole, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm seeing, this whole unconscious thing, just noticing a couple things, like they didn't really answer the question yes or no. Maybe they felt put on the spot. Maybe they felt awkward or embarrassed. And so they flipped it and created this whole dramatic interaction. I really think that's part of what happened. They maybe felt vulnerable and didn't really know how to handle that. And so they started a whole debate. They never even answered the question if they were going to join or not. They started a debate instead. And I'm just like, okay, like, you could have just said yes or no. I said yes or no. I wasn't starting an argument. I said no, and I gave my explanation. And when the person pressed, I kind of gave further an explanation of what I actually am doing, what I actually will be doing, which is why I won't be joining. And it's not unrelated to what they're doing. It's just I'm not going to opt into a Bible study when, some of the studying I'm going to be doing is going to, like, touch Bible, Bible history and Bible passages anyways. And I'd rather study the stuff that comes up in what I'm actually studying with these bigger projects than, do like a daily devotional type of thing. Like, I have my own spiritual practices. I'm not going to really say what they are. Maybe they do involve the Bible, maybe they don't. But I'm kind of doing my own thing. I'm not really wanting to be on someone else's schedule. I have my own routines that I'm kind of creating. So I'm okay with that, and I think, I'm not trying to be hurtful to people, but it's like, I'll talk to them about whatever they're studying. If they want to send me the thing, they can send it to me, and I might, if it's like a yearly study kind of thing, I might see what it's like every couple so often in the year. Like a lot of people know, I grew up Adventist, and I don't really go physically in the Adventist churches on a routine basis, but I might actually go to a church that's not that church, or I might actually tune into a church online on occasion, or I might, have some other kind of interaction on occasion, that's related to kind of religious content. I'm not against it. I find religion can be beautiful. I appreciate spirituality. Religion, in my opinion, is just, I'm not into the manipulation aspect and people explaining for me what they say the Bible or whatever book, what they say it means. I'd rather go the route of like the historical explanations. That's kind of more my vibe. I'm not saying I don't have faith in anything. I'm not saying I don't have my own spiritual beliefs and practices and routines. I totally do. I totally fall short of my own values sometimes, a lot of times, kind of depending on how other things are going in my life. I'm just human like everybody else. But yeah, I was kind of noticing, this person, not the person who asked about the Bible study, but how the other person didn't really respond. So just the fact that they didn't respond with a yes or no when it was a yes or no question, and they took it and ran into a debate with everybody instead, I was like, okay, I see you. I see how you are. And this person also mentioned that there is another family member that they don't like. And, I see a lot of similarities between the two of them, with their social styles. They both kind of have this, desire to debate with people on topics and just leave people just not really wanting to interact. But I feel that's what it was. Like, I'm like, okay, it's probably not easy for this person to be leaving, from a family group where they weren't isolated by themselves all the way somewhere else. They were actually with people for multiple days. They're usually not with people like that, like family, for multiple days. So they were with family for like 4 straight days, and or maybe 4.5 days, I guess, technically. And they, had relatively good interactions. I'm pretty sure that was hard for them to leave that, to go back to their space. So what better way to leave than to distance yourself, That's kind of how I see it. I'm like, this person was like putting an emotional distance. It's like, well, if everybody's pissed off at me, it's going to be easier to walk out the door again. If I create some tension, that's the only thing they know how to do. This would have been a moment for them to be like, look, it was nice for us to all get together as a family and talk about like the good time that they had and the experience and how this was different from maybe other holidays, because this was the first holiday period of this type of holiday that we've all spent together in probably over 2 years now at this point. They could have brought up any of that kind of stuff, but I think it would have been way too vulnerable for them and they wouldn't do it. So instead, they created like a distance And what better way to create a distance than to create an argument with people right at a dinner about religion? I mean, like, that's definitely gonna do it, right? And so I see that that's kind of what they did. They were like, not only did they not feel comfortable mentioning the yes-no question on the spot, maybe that was too vulnerable of a situation. They had to turn it into some debate, and that debate was occurring during the last few minutes of this dinner. And so that's kind of the perspective that helps me, is to kind of see like what is actually happening. It's like sometimes, people don't have the social skills or the emotional intelligence. I mean, first of all, most people wouldn't have brought up that topic anyways. And if they did, they wouldn't do it at a dinner right at the last dinner that we're going to have before we even talk to each other or see each other for months later. Like, I'm not normally interacting with this person. So for months, we're probably not going to talk for months, which is normal. We're not going to interact for months, which is normal. Like, this person, you can text them and they won't respond at all unless it's like maybe about a couple sports teams on rare occasion. If you get them a birthday gift, they don't even like it. If you get them a Christmas gift, they don't even like acknowledge it. They're just not good at acknowledging vulnerability. They don't really have the social graces about them to be able to really do that within their own comfort level. And so I try to give it understanding. It's frustrating as heck for me. It's not something I appreciate, especially because I'm used to being around people with very high emotional intelligence and understanding that you can talk to. I mean, I talk with my friends about religion all the time, and we don't debate about stuff. Like, we might laugh at silly things and be like, this is a weird thing that, like, nobody looks at, or whatever. But we don't argue about it or anything, And so that's totally kind of how I see it. And, I know I'm not the only one who has to deal with family members and the BS situations that come up with all that, I mean, I look around and I see some of my friends and I'm like, a lot of them don't really see their parents very often. And, they don't see other family members very often. And they don't talk to other family members very often. Like, a lot of people I know that I talk to have that specific aunt or have that specific uncle or that specific dad or that specific mom or the siblings or whoever it may be. And, I think more people than not that I know have issues with people, in their families. And so, I take all of that to kind of, help myself to realize, I don't have to spend a lot of time and energy on this type of interaction, like I was equating it to a friendship I have with somebody who I know was having some social issues too, and they kind of didn't notice that, the way they debate with people and all that kind of stuff was kind of just getting on people's nerves. Like, nobody wants to be hanging out. I mean, I introduced this person to friends of mine before, and they wanted to talk about affirmative action with a group of black people. I'm like, why are you gonna like try to argue affirmative action with a group of black people, that you don't even know? But that kind of thing, it's like poor social skills, that's all it really boils down to. And that comes from another place, poor social skills comes from a lot of things, it can come from past trauma, past negative social interactions, lack of social interactions, lack of practice, just not being able to read social cues and all. It can come from so many different places. And so I know that. And so I have to keep these things in mind and see things for what they are, see the situations, how they are, not take it all in and assume, okay, like, here comes a holiday, we all have to interact and be happy and, you know, I mean, I've chosen the relationships I want to have in my life, and I don't think I feel pressured, and I think the situation, again, kind of proved itself that, I was in the right for keeping a distance in the first place, because it's not a very healthy dynamic to be around people who just want to debate because they can't handle, authentic relationships, and they can't really handle, social interactions where they're not, trying to hurt people's feelings or, make somebody feel some kind of weird way or use some weird kind of power dynamic. And again, like I mentioned, like right at the end of like a holiday goodbye dinner is like when you're gonna start the debate with people. It's like so inappropriate. But I have to just realize that, I've made my decision with how I think is going to help me to interact with those types of people. I just have to stick to it. And if people do come up to kind of get on my nerves, I just have to realize why they're doing it, why they're interacting in that way. And for myself, to be careful not to latch on to treating people like that, to make sure that I don't pick up on those habits, because it is kind of an elder in my family community that's acting like this, and things can be passed down, and I don't want to be acting this way towards my friend groups or my people that I love in my life. I don't want to be just reacting all weird and in strange ways where I'm hurting people's feelings or whatever. And I don't want people feeling like they have to defend other people when I'm talking to them. I don't want any of that negative interaction. I just want to have fun and nice experiences with people that I care for, and develop those relationships strongly, and not create barriers or weird tension, and work on my own stuff. If I'm feeling vulnerable or insecure, I need to work in that in the real time. I don't need to put that on somebody else and make them feel like crap. So that's kind of my goal in all this. It's kind of a learning experience, but I also recognize this is just the beginning of a holiday period, one down. I mean, overall, it was honestly good. It just is like, wow, you're going to end it with the grand finale. But looking at it this way for me has kind of helped me to just kind of, do something creative with it, and, think about it in a different light of like what's actually going on. I know it's not me. I know I didn't start this conversation. I know they have their own issues going on, which is how come they responded as they did. And that's their choice, that they like to create this kind of distance between physical distance and emotional distance and social distance. That's what they need for their own comfort. Because right now they don't really have the strength to push through, the vulnerable feelings. And that's kind of all it really is. And a lot of times with family dynamics, that's really what it boils down to, is people's insecurities. Which I'm not saying, people need to make space for it at all, even. I'm not saying, you have to put yourself in any kind of a situation where you're going to feel bad. But if you are, and that there's possibly people that you don't want to completely X out of your life, that you still want to try interacting with, but you know they're going to start acting a fool at some point because that's just what they do. This can be a method to think about, what they're actually doing. And sorry about my voice being a little not perfect. Part of it's the vaping, part of it's just because, when I'm kind of upset about something, my throat gets a little constricted. And I'll be fine with everything. It's just, it can be a little disappointing and just a waste of energy. That's kind of how I see it. It's like, really? But then again, it's like, leave it to this person to interact like this, leave it to this person to be this way. It's either we interact or we don't, or we have some form of interaction where we know that, faults are going to come up and we're just going to have to deal. So those are kind of what the options kind of look like, and that can change at any time. And I feel good that at least we tried, but also I kind of knew something was going to happen. I was just kind of shocked that it wasn't happening the whole entire 4 days. So I would call it some form of improvement, but still messy. But we have the choice, as adults, we luckily have a choice to, say if we want to put up with each other's stuff or not. And, I've got my own stuff too, and this person has their own stuff, and all of us do. So, I'm not perfect either. There might be somebody out there ranting about some stupid thing I said or did, so I don't know, but I hope not. I would hope that people would at least talk to me if I was doing something, but that's just how it is. And every time this person comes around, this is just how it's going to be. I'm pretty sure other people have people like that in their lives too, and if you do, I would say this is one method I've found to deal with it, is just what I explained, thinking about it in this way. But I gotta go get my breakfast, and thanks for listening.